This chilling crime story has left more questions in its wake than answers. On March 31st, 1922, 6 inhabitants of a small Bavarian farmstead were gruesomely murdered. The unique scenario surrounding this case has left some people wondering if there was perhaps a paranormal angle to the murders at this small farm. Despite the fact that various pieces of evidence were recovered from the scene of this terrible crime, the mystery behind this case has not yet been unraveled. Welcome to this channel. Today we're going to take a look at a century-old cold case. This touching story has remained one of Germany's longest and most puzzling unsolved crimes. Before we continue, make sure you like, share and subscribe to get notified about our latest videos. And now let's take a look at the sad, chilling story of the Hinterkaifeck murders. Our story begins in a small Bavarian farmstead located about 70 kilometers or 43 miles from the German capital Munich. This little farm was home to Andreas Gruber, Gisela Gruber, his widowed daughter Victoria Gabrielle, and maid Maria Baumgartner, and Victoria's children Gisela and Joseph. Sadly, they were also the victims of the terrifying murders that forms our story today. While the deaths at this little farm are truly shocking, what makes the Hinterkaifeck murder stand out among other crime cases are the various strange events that occurred before the sad happenings of March 31st, 1922. In the months leading up to the murders, various strange things began to happen at Hinterkaifeck. About 6 months before the attack, the maid to the Grubers quit her job. While no one knows exactly why she quit, it has been said that she believed the house to be haunted after hearing strange noises coming from the attic. Another strange event occurred in March 1922 when Andreas Gruber found a strange newspaper from Munich on his property. Andreas was surprised because he could not remember buying the newspaper, and he believed that it was probably just the postman who had misplaced his newspaper on the property. However, it was discovered that no one in the vicinity was subscribed to that paper. Strange, right? But hold on, this is where it gets even stranger. A couple of days before the murder, Gruber pointed out to his neighbors that he noticed tracks that led from the forest around his property to a door in his farm's machine room. He was also worried that there were no tracks going out. Other reported worries included the disappearance of a set of keys, which heightened concerns about possible paranormal activity at the farm. Later that night, footsteps were heard in the attic, and despite searching the building, Gruber couldn't find anyone. When advised by people to seek help, Gruber refused. He also refused the offer of a gun for protection. Maria Baumgartner, the new maid, arrived at Hinterkaifeck on 31st May 1922. She was accompanied by her sister, who escorted her to the farm and left after a short stay. It's likely that she was the last person to ever see the inhabitants at Hinterkaifeck alive. This was because that very evening, barely hours after she started at her new job, Maria Baumgartner and the Gruber family met their untimely end at the hands of the unknown perpetrator of the Hinterkaifeck murders. Evidence showed that Andreas Gruber, Gisela Gruber, Victoria Gabrielle and her 7-year-old daughter Gisela were lured to the family barn where the killer waited. Once inside, the killer or killers used a mattock belonging to the farm to murder each member of the family one at a time with blows to the head. The murderer then moved into the house where he killed 2-year-old Joseph as he slept in his bassinet and Baumgartner in her bedchamber. People noticed when the family failed to show up in church for Sunday worship and when Gisela Gabrielle was suddenly absent from school without excuse. But although various people came to Hinterkaifeck after 31st March, it would take 4 days before the murders would be discovered. On 4th April 1922, Lorenz Schlittenbauer sent his son Johann and his stepson Joseph to check up on the Gruber and his family. When they returned to inform him that they did not see anyone at Hinterkaifeck, Schlittenbauer visited the farm along with some other people. When they entered the barn, they found the horrifying sight of Andreas Gruber, Gisela Gruber, his granddaughter Gisela, and his daughter Victoria murdered in the barn. They soon also discovered the bodies of young Joseph and the chambermaid Maria Baumgartner inside the home. An investigation was immediately launched to look into the murders, with Inspector Jörg Reingruber in charge of the investigation. However, the scene of the crime had been compromised by the number of people who had been at the farmstead before the investigation commenced. An autopsy was performed by Johann Baptist Ameler, a court physician. Johann autopsied the bodies in the barn, and although the murder weapon could not be found at the scene, a mattock was established as the most likely murder weapon. In what is perhaps the most heart-wrenching part of this tale, evidence from the crime scene revealed that little Kazilla remained alive for several hours after the assault and tore her hair out in tufts while she lay bleeding on the straw, probably through pain and grief. The investigator soon ruled out robbery as a motive for the murders after discovering large sums of money at the Gruber household. Strangely though, he noticed that the animals were well fed and that the cows were milked in the days following the murder, suggesting that perhaps someone else had been on the farm after the murders. Some neighbors also claimed that they could see smoke rising from the chimney in the days following the murder. The strange events at Hinterkaifeck were discussed for years to come, with some people believing that the devil himself visited the Gruber family on that cold, dark night. Based on everything that had happened at Hinterkaifeck prior to the murders, the possible role of a paranormal event should not be discounted. But what if the Hinterkaifeck murders were the product of a truly dark mind? This was the question on the mind of Inspector Ryan Gruber as he began questioning as many people as he could in order to get to the bottom of this mystery. What he could not know, however, was that this was the case he would spend most of his career trying to solve. It was said that Inspector Ryan Gruber questioned a wide variety of people, from vagrants to people from villages surrounding Hinterkaifeck. However, as the investigation went on, Ryan Gruber quickly narrowed down his search and began to focus on his prime suspects. One of the first people to come under suspicion as a prime suspect was none other than the neighbor who discovered the bodies at the farm. This neighbor, Lorenz Schlittenbauer, was also the source of the stories about the noise in the attic and the footsteps in the snow. It's also worth noting that his stories have not been corroborated by any other witnesses. Schlittenbauer had had some bitter disagreements with Andreas over his daughter Victoria, with Andreas staunchly refusing to give his daughter away to Schlittenbauer in marriage. However, Victoria and Schlittenbauer had been together a couple of times, and Schlittenbauer strongly believed that young Joseph was his son. Victoria had even admitted giving herself to Schlittenbauer a couple of times. However, this was before the shocking news of the incestuous relationship between Andreas and Victoria became public. Still, Schlittenbauer was denied any form of access to young Joseph. Even worse, he was made to pay maintenance for the child. These are the situations which some people believe may have drawn Schlittenbauer to commit these murders. He also knew Hinterkaifeck and where Andreas kept his farming equipment. In what could only be a stroke of a twisted, evil genius, it's possible that he used his stories as a clever way to divert police attention from himself. The second major aspect was the husband of the murdered Victoria, Carl Gabriel. Although it was believed that Carl was struck by a mine while at war in 1914, his body was never recovered, with tests at the time confirming Andreas as the true father of both Victoria and her young son. It is possible that this served as motive for Carl returning to Hinterkaifeck unannounced. Being red-hot with anger at Victoria's adulterous betrayal, it was possible that Carl killed Andreas, Victoria and young Joseph in a fit of rage. The question we're faced with now is, were any of these men truly responsible for the Hinterkaifeck murders, or is there still more to this bone-chilling tale? Although various other angles that may have been responsible for the Hinterkaifeck murders have been reported, including a possible Nazi link to the murders, it may just be that the Grubers were sadly in the wrong place at the wrong time and became victims at the hands of a madman. Sadly, the truth about what happened at Hinterkaifeck remains a puzzle nearly a century after it occurred. In 2007, the latest police investigation on the murders concluded that the Hinterkaifeck case may never be solved, as important evidence was either missing or poorly collected. It would seem in the end that Anderson's worries about the noises from the attic were well-founded. It is possible that the perpetrator or perpetrators hid in the attic and observed the daily lives of the Gruber household. Perhaps the Hinterkaifeck murders may have been solved if better attention was given to the evidence collection and testing. The decapitated heads used for testing were also somehow lost, with most people believing that this was due to negligence. After the death at Hinterkaifeck, the farm and its buildings were destroyed and subsequently redeveloped in the years following the murder, limiting any new forensic findings. As time passed, even the small town of Wangan has slowly faded away. However, a little memorial resembling the Hinterkaifeck murders remain. The English translation of the inscription on the memorial reads, "Memorial for Hinterkaifeck in the immediate vicinity of the crime. Godless hand, the family, Gabriel Gruber, fell victim here on 31st March 1922. The inscription is followed by the names and dates of birth of each of the victims. The Hinterkaifeck murders have been immortalized in various movies, and there are songs and books that continue to remember and pay tribute to the souls that perished at Hinterkaifeck. The truth, however, remains that we may never get to find out what truly happened on the cold, dark night of 31st March 1922. Was the Hinterkaifeck murders the result of a spurned lover, an angry husband, Nazis, or was there perhaps truly a paranormal angle to the whole incident? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comment section.